Today's story is titled Mr. Figgyfingers by Chickenmilk. The link to the story is in the description below. Please enjoy. When cannibals describe how human flesh tastes, they usually liken it to pork. I was 11 years old when I first tried it, and I can unfortunately attest to that. It was during the COVID-19 lockdown. I was fresh into middle school, 6th grade. Most kids' worst year of their entire life, and I beat them to it 3 years early. Really, it wasn't all that long ago, but it feels like I've aged decades since then. If not just by what happened that year, then by the years following, aging me like spoiled milk, turning me into a teenage nursing home resident. My therapist says I gotta write all this out from the beginning if I have any hope of recovering, or at least of getting a couple steps closer to a life that's somewhat normal. We lived in rural Florida, my mom and me. I didn't really fully understand the intense weight and massive impact of the whole pandemic and living where we did. Our lives weren't impacted all that much by it, like most of the world. Mom worked her job online anyway, so that was normal. And me? I was ecstatic that school got canceled. That was all it really was to me. Like a hurricane day, a snow day for the northerners. Living out where we did, the closest thing to a neighbor we had was a mile away. Then long, endless farmland and cattle pastures until you came to the woods or another person's house. I'd been taken out of school right around the end of 2019. I had just started 6th grade and was already hating it. I felt like everyone hated my guts. I was a short kid with medium long hair, a chubby brace face, and a squeaky voice that refused to lower even though I'd already begun puberty. And that was one of the worst parts of starting middle school, and another reason I was glad to be out of it once lockdown had officially begun. The bullying. They were ruthless, and I never heard so many swear words in my life. Never been called so many horrible names before. Never felt so ruthlessly picked on and lonely. My mom, God bless her, she did the best she could. She was all I had to help me through the anxieties that began showing up around that age. This whole thing had done such a number on her. I only really had this one friend back then, Cody. He was in my grade, but a little younger than me, scrawny and smaller. I felt like an older brother to him. It's stupid, I know. I never had any siblings growing up. Cody lived a couple miles away, and we rode the same bus to school every morning. The only one that would pick up the kids that lived out as far as we did. I hated getting up so early, right at the ass crack of dawn, before the sun had even risen. I'd stand out by the mailbox at the end of my driveway and wait in the dark for the yellow headlights of bus 1697. He sat next to me on that first day of school, that early morning. I was surprised because the bus was taking routes my mom never drove and going down back roads I didn't even know existed. The entryways hidden away between clumps of overgrown trees and palmetto bushes. It was a long, long road down to Cody's house. Nothing but trees and foliage on each side the whole way down. His family was renting a trailer far out back there. I wonder where they are now. I was totally shocked when the bus doors opened and he made his way all the way to the seat I was in and plopped right next to me. First thing I noticed about him was the faint smell of cigarettes that came off his clothes. His head was shaved, completely buzzed almost to the skin. It was jarring. He smiled at me, and I thought I could see every single one of his teeth. The two in the front overlapped one over the other.
"Sup, fucker?"
he said, in a voice equally as squeaky as mine. I blinked for a moment. "What's up?"
"Wanna see something sick?"
He pulled his thin backpack up onto his lap. It looked empty, but he opened the front zipper so I could see inside. It was full of broken pencils and dust and a few pens and markers. He pointed at something that looked like a black marker to me. The sun had come up a bit at this point, so I could see it decently. He stuck it in his mouth, and at the end of it lit up a little blue circle. He blew quickly, and when I saw smoke, I panicked. He laughed like a maniac when I started swatting at the air, hoping it would dissipate before the bus driver saw. "Dude, stop! You're gonna get us in trouble!"
"It's fine,"
he said.
"Took it from my dad's girlfriend."
He snickered again. "You need to get rid of that, dude," I told him, cautiously eyeing the driver through the rearview mirror. I really didn't want to be around him if he was gonna vape again. My mom would kill me if she found out.
"Stop being a little bitch."
He sighed and put it back in his bag.
"Got a name, pussy?"
I don't know how we ended up becoming such close friends. You'd never think it. We were polar opposites. But I enjoyed hanging out with the guy. Pretty soon, we started hanging out at his place more and more often. My mom hated driving me down there, but I convinced her. His house was always a mess, his parents never around. Reeked of cigarettes and dog piss. There were always little chihuahuas and kittens scuttling around the house, and I never felt clean for a minute while I was there. But his family treated me nice enough when I did see them. It wasn't hard to see where he'd gotten his quirks from once I met them. Like I said, his house was super far out there. Behind it was woods. There was a swampy creek Cody and I would go to on weekends and sit and talk for hours about dumb shit. Girls and movies. We'd throw rocks at the birds and the trees. The creek was brown with tannins, and there was no way we were going to swim. Wasn't deep enough anyway. We didn't start hiking that far out there until lockdown, and we were out of school for so long. There was no getting us to do our homework on the computers. We could not have cared any less. I guess I picked that up from him eventually. When we ran into the guy, it had been getting late, later than we would usually stay out. I had planned to sleep over at his house. All my stuff was there that afternoon. My mom wasn't pleased with me always being around him and his family, but I guess she gave in since he was the only kid at school I'd seemed to get along with. I always smelled like cigarettes after staying at his place. I think that day we had been watching the Stephen King's It 1990 miniseries. He had an old Walmart DVD we put in his Xbox to watch. The one you had to flip upside down to watch part 2. It was the kids building a dam in the barrens that made us want to go out that afternoon. I guess we thought we'd do the same to the old creek. Once we were out there, we wasted a good long while looking for stuff to make a dam, but quickly realized we had no idea how to do that with just sticks and palmetto leaves as our tools. We instead opted to shooting off bottle rockets at the birds and the trees. There were those little green parakeets that are invasive. Usually, we'd get an old beer bottle and light them while running away laughing, but this time, we had a different idea. Cody had brought an old thin PVC pipe, and we took turns lighting the rockets inside and aiming it at those birds like our own makeshift gun. It was pretty damn fun. We never actually hit the birds. They flew away too fast, and the loud pop was enough to scare the rest away for a bit while we reloaded. We kept doing that until Cody lit one too close to his body, and it burned a hole straight through his shirt. "Ah, fuck!" He dropped the pipe, and it dipped down into the water, the bottle rocket sputtering and bursting below. "What? What happened?" I said. Cody showed me his white t-shirt. There was a burnt hole in it, and the skin underneath was red. "It's okay, man. You'll live."
"It hurts like a motherfucker."
"Don't be a bitch, remember?" He shot me a middle finger, but I saw that smile underneath. It was dusk now, getting darker by the minute. I looked up at the sky. The cicadas were overpowering. I put my hand out for Cody to take. He did, and I pulled him to his feet. He made a face and scrunched up his nose.
"Dude, did you shit yourself?"
"What?
"What in the hell is that smell?"
You're the one to talk."
"No, I'm serious. It reeks, dude."
I didn't really smell anything, but I did hear something. It was really odd. A creaking sound. Not like the trees swaying. like someone was drawing with a dry erase marker, but pressing down really hard. It was faint, under the cacophony of bugs, but definitely there. Cody wiped a hand across his nose.
I don't know. Let's just get the fuck back to...
That's when the most bizarre thing happened. A voice, soft and slurred, came from the bushes. Sounded like someone trying to talk with a swollen tongue. Figgy! Both of us started looking around frantically for the source of the voice. The creaking was back now. When I finally saw him, my heart dropped. You know how when you wake up in the middle of the night and you see a pile of clothes or a coat hanging up, and for a split second, your heart stops because it looks just like a person? That's what I felt when I saw the guy. Except it wasn't a clump of trees. It was an empty coat. It was a man. An enormous man. His face was shrouded in shadow, and the creaking sound was coming from him, from his mouth. Figgy!
Dude! Who the hell are you?
Cody yelled at him. I could tell it surprised him, and just came out of sheer panic. I could see it on his face. He was as scared as I was. No one should be out here, especially not on this property. It belonged to the people Cody's parents were renting the trailer from. They lived in another state. So who? I whispered, "Cody, we need to go. Now." He just stared at the guy. I looked as well, trying to see any features. His jaw was moving back and forth, and I finally realized what the creaking sound was. The guy was grinding his teeth together and muttering something weird under his breath. Figgy! It was the most bizarre thing. Us standing there staring at this weird guy in the woods. He looked worse than homeless, like his clothes haven't come off or been washed in a year. A dark, large jacket and long, dirty jeans with enormous, scuffed-up work boots. The guy had to be 6'8" or more and very heavy. He hunched like it hurt to stand up straight. He was breathing hard and grinding his teeth. I could smell him now, ripe like rotten meat. I decided to try and talk. Hey, you can't be out here. This is private property. Do you know the Owens? Do you live somewhere around here? I scrambled to think of some rational reason for this dude to be out here. I figured maybe he was hunting or something, but he didn't have a gun. When he finally responded, I thought at first he had some sort of accent, maybe Dutch or German. Sounded like his tongue was swollen too large for his mouth, but I realized now it was just his lisp. He had an incredibly strong lisp because of his... Would you like to come live with me? I live everywhere, with my figgies. I realized just then that I'd been gradually shuffling backwards because my foot hit something on the ground, lazily tossed to the side behind a tree. It was a pair of post-hole diggers, the kind of shovel with two handles that you use to dig circular holes for posts when building a fence. My eyes struggled to focus in the dark. It was just so out of place it didn't make sense.
No, man, stop!
I heard Cody mutter. I looked back up, and now the man was walking straight at him, his footfalls heavy. I saw Cody turn to run in the opposite direction. Cody, wait! I called after him, but he was already going.
Split up and meet back at my house!
He called back at me as he ran. It hit me right then that it was now way too dark, and I didn't know which was the way back. We'd be scrambling through the dark woods with no way to navigate and no flashlight, and he'd be after us. What happened next was almost like a cartoon. I saw Cody run off through an opening in the trees, then stop suddenly and fold forward flat on the forest floor. A sound like splitting celery was followed by the most horrible screaming and crying I've ever heard from another human being. It was so shrill and pained, it almost sounded like a squealing pig, and immediately the man was on him. His gigantic hands, hairy and stained from dirt and grime, grabbing my friend around the face, muffling his cries. Still, he continued to shriek through the hands. I ran towards them and saw the damage. Cody's leg had disappeared into a deep hole, and his body had fallen forward, snapping his knee in the wrong direction. He looked like he was doing a split, the other leg splayed out wildly and kicking at the man. He was crying hard, sobbing and screaming through a mouthful of fingers. I didn't know what else to do, so I kicked the guy from behind as hard as I could between the legs. The man screamed and stood up, dropping my friend. The next thing I remember is flying straight backwards and a heavy red-hot pain in the middle of my face before I blacked out. I went in and out of consciousness for a while after that. I remember being dragged by the shirt, getting dirt and leaves in my pants, feeling too weak to fight back. I remember going down wooden stairs. It felt like we descended forever. That's what confused me about it. Each time I thought we'd reach the bottom, there would be more stairs. I saw Cody too. He wasn't conscious. It was a hard concrete floor and it stank so bad. It was humid and muggy. I kept hearing the faint voice come and go in my delirium. Figgyfingers, Figgyfingers. The first thing I noticed was the smell, like fermented feces. It was so dark, like the finality of death. A light sputtered to life. It was a long yellow bulb screwed to the concrete ceiling, and it was blinding. There wasn't a single spider web on it, just caked to dust like beard stubble. My head was on fire. I had to breathe through my mouth, not only because of the stench, but the fact my nose was swollen twice its original size. I coughed and gagged, spitting up blood and licked my gums. Felt like I had a mouthful of dirt. I spat and spat little white crumbs of my broken teeth into my hand and stared at it through my swollen, tear-stained eyes. A groan from somewhere in the room. My eyes slowly adjusted to the harsh, dim yellow light. It was a concrete room. I assumed it was a basement of some kind, but you dig more than a couple of feet here in Florida and you hit water. So how could it? Across from me, I heard the groaning again, and I finally saw Cody's broken figure. I went to him quickly, and he winced and screeched at me not to touch him. Cody, it's me! It's me! I said desperately. He didn't have a clue.
Where am I? Where am I? What the fuck is going on?
I looked around the room. It was a big room, almost completely bare, stained all over the floor and dirt smeared everywhere. The section where Cody and I were was lit by the large bulb, and the far section straight ahead was veiled in shadow. That's where the stains were darkest on the floor, leading straight into a void completely absent of light. I strained and strained to see. There were shapes, but I couldn't quite make out. Cody began to whine and cry, and I looked down at his leg. It was bent forward at the knee unnaturally, swollen like some rotting fruit, and it looked like it was about to burst out of his pant leg. I don't know, but we have to go and get you to a doctor.
How bad is it? How bad is...
Cody whispered, leaning forward. Don't look at it! He screamed and screamed. If it was from the pain or the look of it, I wasn't totally sure. Stop! Stop!
Where are we?
I don't know. Can you move it? I reached towards him.
No! No! Don't touch it! Don't touch it!
He screamed in agony, and I flinched back. The blurred memories came rushing in. We'd been in the woods shooting bottle rockets. It had gotten darker and... To our right, a raking, tearing rumble boomed as an immense metal door was slid open with great force. Looked like it took a ton of effort to pull it open. We grabbed each other and cringed backwards into the wall like cornered mice, as one enormous dirty boot after the other dragged the man attached to them into the room with us. He looked so much larger standing over us like that, back hunched over as to not hit his head on the ceiling. For a moment, his head blocked out the bulb like the moon blocking the sun in an eclipse, and I saw his eyes.
Rise and shine, little figgies. Today's your day. Ours the end.
He took a deep, whistling breath through his nose.
Smell what's in store.
Cody and I winced at each word. His breath reeked. He reeked. I eyed the open door where he'd come in. Stairs upon stairs leading up and out of sight. He turned his huge figure and slammed the door closed, and we heard a loud metallic click. When his gaze shifted back to us, I could see the door's handle had a large keyhole, oddly shaped, round and jagged.
Who are you? Why are we here? Where is here?
I screamed up at the man. I realized as my voice began to crack that I was crying along with my friend.
Oh, you precious little things. No need to be afraid of me. And I have no secret here. Ask away.
He slowly but surely got down to our level. His knees popped like firecrackers as he crouched down and began to crawl on all fours towards us. Now we could see his face and the way he talked. That slur and lisp of cracked speech made a lot more sense to us. He was badly mangled. His lip was cleft all the way up past his nose. Not like he was born with it, but scarred and ripped like it was done to him. The gap in his top lip extended far up to under his left eye, and the segmentation ended there. Underneath the flaps of flesh was what looked like the inside of his soft palate under his nasal cavity, open and exposed and leaking, connected and trailed down in a great big V of crooked teeth, scattered on either side of his upper jaw. Like a gaping wound nature tried to heal over, but the damage was already too much. Cody began to scream and cry, and I felt my bladder go. Nothing like that has ever happened to me before, but I was just so scared at that moment that everything just broke loose.
You both can call me Mr. Figgyfingers.
He held up his hands for us to see in the light, grinning like a child on Christmas. 9 of his 10 fingers were missing the ends at the joint. All but one of his fingers were rubbed off at the end, leaving an old scarred stump where his fingertips and nails should be. The only one left being his right thumb. I gagged. Cody was silent in awestruck horror. Mr. Figgyfingers smiled. We were trapped in here with him. A noise, a thumping came from ahead. In that void of darkness with the dark stained floor, that section of the room where the light was out. A movement, like something had woken up. Cody and I could only stare in terror. The man licked his torn lips. Mucus and spittle leaked from the gaping maw of teeth.
Would you like to meet my figgies?
It's an odd thing, staring death in the face and wondering how it will be in the end. Will it hurt? The man looked like death. His grin was so full of giddy joy, I could only believe that he'd crawled out from the black cloak and was sharpening his scythe for the kill. Cody finally spoke.
What the fuck are you talking about?
He screamed.
Take us back!
Cody cried through his words. His leg was so swollen, so ruined.
Well, you're in no position to be going anywhere. You're home, little man. That leg's gonna need to be attended to sometime, I reckon, don't you think?
He reached a big hand towards Cody.
Don't touch me! Fuck off, you pervert!
He spat weakly at the man and scrambled back, hitting his leg in the process and crying out again in pain, grabbing at his twisted and swollen leg. The man's expression changed at this, and he recoiled. He lifted himself up to standing again and became very grim and serious, his voice lower now and commanding.
No, I am no pervert. Don't you even suggest such things. That is no way to be talking to Mr. Figgyfingers when he's trying to help you out now, is it?
Why are we here?
I yelled at him.
What do you want from us?
His terrible eyes were on me now, dark and predatory, his mouth hanging open and his mangled jaw dripping steadily.
It ain't what I want, son.
He licked his gnarled lips and turned to the door. I couldn't tell what he was doing at first, until I heard a crackle and a hum, and a yellow light began to pop on above the stained floor at the far end of the room. One by one, those tube lights fastened to the ceiling began to turn on, illuminating what we'd been missing in the darkness. Where the stains began, they branched off into heavier, darker splotches, all the way to the concrete wall and a large wooden door cut into it. The door was blocked off by metal fencing a few feet out, which went all the way from the ground to the ceiling on the side of the room, creating a sort of cage separating our section from whatever was past the door. It looked like a makeshift jail cell made with welded together rebar. I heard a heavy cranking noise as the door began to lift upwards and stop, revealing the black darkness beyond and the source of the smell. It poured out of the hole like hot breath, and both Cody and I were overpowered by the stench of rot and shit, and a noise.
It's what the Figgies want.
When they finally emerged, I thought I'd gone insane with fear. They were so enormous I thought I was seeing some sort of deformed monsters, and only after a couple of seconds did I realize what I was looking at. Out of that cavernous door walked two gigantic pigs. My heart sank to the floor. The sheer size was unbelievable. They had to be 4 feet tall from the hooves to the top of the head and 7 feet long. They probably weighed as much as 700 pounds each from the look of them. Their stomachs were these wide, bloated barrels, sprouted with tough red hairs that were caked in mud and shit. Each step they took was like dropping a bowling ball on the floor. Their mouths had jagged tusks jutting out of the top and bottom jaws. One was a little skinnier than the other, and the bigger one nipped at it, making it squeal with surprise. They lifted their huge heads and sniffed the air, grunting and oinking. They snapped and rubbed their teeth together, making a and they smelled absolutely awful. Cody began to scream. I began to scream. The pigs squealed with hungry excitement when they finally noticed us. They began to pace heavily back and forth in the space of the cage and grunt loud and needily. The man began to laugh.
What the hell do you think you're gonna do?
I could hardly speak. The man hunched down and made his way to the cage, stopping a few feet from the metal rebar.
Boys, this is Hank and Jurgen. They're my Figgies.
The bigger one began to ram into the rebar of the cage hard, making its nose bleed, but it just kept going, trying to get him. He pointed at the skinnier hog.
As you see here, Jurgen ain't doing so hot. Pigs gotta eat, and my fingers can only do so much.
He stuck his last intact thumb out like a hitchhiker. He did it so fast I barely had time to gasp. Once his thumb was past the bars, the bigger pig latched on. The man screamed and screamed. The pig's jaws working, chewing heavily at his thumb, until he pulled hard enough that the joint gave away with a loud pop, and he pulled his hand free. It was spilling blood like a faucet, and as it hit the floor in gushes, I realized where the other stains had come from. He held up what was left of the torn thumb, the ragged end of it nubbed off at the joint, and stuck it in his mouth like a kid who's touched the hot stove. He slurped and slobbered over his finger and spoke while he did in a garbled, drooling splash of hardly intelligible words.
Like pork chops.
The giant hog behind him crunching and cracking down his severed thumb, while the smaller one next to it settled to the floor and let out a long, hot breath of air, like it was sighing in hunger pains. My eyes were so blurry with tears, and my chest was heaving with sobs as he made his way to our level again and crawled towards us. He whispered grimly,
I don't think Jurgen's gonna be with us too much longer at this rate. Which one of yous is gonna be a good sport and take one for the team?
He glanced at me, then turned to Cody. The man made a sharp intake of breath and gestured towards Cody's leg.
It's swollen. Don't think if I can save it. Maybe gotta cut it off.
He got up and looked both at us and past us, to where I didn't know if he was talking to us or the pigs.
Farewell, piggies. Hope he eats good. Real good.
He left without another word, slamming the door behind him, leaving us with these horrible thoughts and his pigs. The big one just stared right at us, grunting slightly. The skinnier one sat in the same position, breathing softly and ragged. I thought he was going to feed us to his pigs, but he didn't. He didn't because days must have gone by. I don't have a clue how long. The yellow lights were always on, and I drifted in and out of consciousness. Delirium. I felt so weak, so thirsty, and so hungry. It felt like forever. Hours or weeks, I didn't know. I feel like I tried to calm Cody, but he was in hysterics after that. He wouldn't talk to me, crying and hyperventilating, screaming, looking at the pigs. The squealing and grunting felt like it was taking over our minds. I tried to console him. I was so dizzy and my vision was so blurred. So much time went by that I don't even remember. The man didn't come back. I wanted to get the door open, but I was too weak. Everything was blurry. Everything stank. Everything burned in my lungs, and I gagged without any food in my stomach to throw up. I remember peeing in my hands and trying to drink it. I remember screaming and crying and missing Cody. Because Cody was gone. Cody was gone, and so was his leg. He stared at me with glazed over eyes, and I could just hear his voice screaming at me to wake up and do something, but the door was locked. Cody stared at me, and his leg was gone at the knee. It wasn't swollen anymore. A long red streak like a fountain painting the concrete floor, and the pig growling, grumbling. The larger pig. Hank was growling and grumbling because he was full. Because the smaller one, Jurgen, was dead, and Hank had eaten every last bit of him off his bones, and then the bones too. And I was crying and growling and grumbling too, because I was full too. I drifted in and out, and someone was feeding me pork chops, right off the bone. And it was so good I ate all the bones too, like a hungry little dog. And it was so good it didn't even need ketchup. And I was so full I knew just how to unlock the door's silly little lock with its jagged keyhole, 'cause old Jurgen's tusk would fit right into that hole, or maybe even this bone. So I tried the knob, and it wasn't locked. The door swung right open like it weighed nothing at all, when it was so heavy before. I thought he locked it. I looked up the flights and flights of stairs and back at Hank, who stared, grunting, fat as a tick. Was it unlocked the whole time? I asked him.
Always.
He grumbled back.
Will you please let me out? I've never seen the sky. I don't think he's coming back.
I turned away. Pigs can't look at the sky, I said, and began to crawl my way up each step. When I reached the top and pushed open another door, I was in the woods again, so I kept crawling on all fours through the woods like a pig, until they found me rooting in the dirt by a tree and took me home. I am not the same. I don't know where I was all that time, or where the man who kidnapped us went after leaving us there. I don't even know where all my fingers went.